So let's get started. You recently shared your coming out story on E, and you mentioned that a lot of your father's fans tend to be conservative people. What were some of your fears prior to coming out?
So yeah, I definitely shared the story on the show, and I will say for me, it was never, I'm fortunate that it was never about my family. My parents have known about me being gay, my entire family, since I was in college, freshman year of college actually. But even with that being the case, I kept it a secret for a long time because I was afraid about what, our community would think first. I mean, I grew up in the church, a close-knit church community. I was worried about what some of our friends and family would think, extended friends and family. But obviously with my dad being in the public spotlight, that even put a larger microscope on it for me. And so even though I was blessed to have that, safety net of a family, which a lot of people in our situation don't even have, it was still that pressure of knowing that once I came out to the world, that it was going to be, oh my goodness. I mean, I talk about it on the show. It happened with one of my best friends, EJ Johnson, Magic Johnson's son. And when he came out, it was almost an attack on his entire family. And I did worry about that. And and unfortunately, when I ultimately did come out, there was a little bit of that. Not as much as I expected, thank God. But I think ultimately through the process, I realized that I have to lean into the love and try and educate people that aren't quite there yet. And that is probably what felt the best when I finally made that decision to come out. But the biggest fear was really that it was going to kind of impact my dad's career and my family's reputation.
Yeah, you come from this very specific situation, having a father who is famous. Maybe people can't relate to that on your level of fame and having a show on E and everything. But I guess some queer people can relate to that with like having a parent that perhaps is famous within that community, or having a parent that is like well respected in that community. I don't know, a more localized situation. How did you balance trying to live your life authentically while trying to be mindful of the legacy that your father has built?
No, I think you're right. I mean, when you talk about that localized similarity, I mean, it is literally, if you think about a preacher's child, or you think about even if your parent is maybe just the principal at your school, you're kind of that version of a microscope where everybody knows you because they associate you with your parent. And I grew up in the church. I went to church every Sunday, and hear the pastor go up there and say horrible things. And it's damaging because the church should be a place of love. It should be a place where we're embracing one another and creating community. And to feel like you're going into that community every Sunday and being rejected, I can just imagine how many LGBTQ people can identify with that. I mean, you asked me how I balanced kind of that microscope and that pressure from the community, and with my family knowing and me trying to live my life. And my boyfriend and I, Elliot, dated for 6 years in a mostly closeted way, with our family just knowing but no one else knowing. And I would say I didn't balance it. Looking back on it, those years were tough, particularly in college when I was having to be two different people. I would go around one group of friends and act a certain way, and I would get around people I was maybe more comfortable with and be somebody completely different. And that's, that can put you through a lot of mental anguish. And I know a lot of people in my situation have been through that. And I have had friends who continue to have difficulty really coping with how they're going to be able to live their lives more authentically. Because I think when you're caught up in that cycle, there really isn't a lot of balance. Even if you think you're creating balance, it's really not. And it didn't feel like my soul. And looking back on it, it feels so empowering and so good to be able to live authentically and not have to worry about what people are thinking. I don't care. I can go out the house now and hold hands with my boyfriend. I can go and kiss in public, and people will say things and people might think things, but I really don't care because I've gotten to the point where I've been through that journey to be comfortable with myself. And I know a lot of us are still on that journey, and it is important to support folks who are on there. And I think our show and Mathis Family Matters is that example to show people that you can live a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned that your family had known since college that you were gay.
It's a funny story behind that, if you got time for it.
I do have time for it. You can tell me. How did you come out to them?
So I did not come out I was actually outed to them by my by my younger brother, Amir. And he, outing is not a good thing to do. He didn't understand that at the time. He did it from a place of love, and I'm actually grateful for it because it allowed me to come out to my family a lot sooner than I think I would have otherwise. I was in college, freshman year. I thought I was being secretive, and I was dating someone at the time. Of course, word kind of got out to a couple people, and so someone that knew my brother called him and told him like, "Hey, I think Greg is like dating a guy up here, like blah blah blah." So my brother calls me, Amir, and I pick up the phone and he goes, Greg, someone called me and said you're dating a guy at Michigan and that you're gay. Like, is this true? And at first I'm like, no, it's not true. Like, what are you talking about? And I like get defensive and all this stuff, and I hang up the phone. I call him back after thinking about it. I'm like, okay, it's true, but please don't tell anybody. Like, I want to do it on my own timeline. I promise you I'll tell mom and dad eventually. Just please don't say anything. He says, okay, I'm not going to say anything. Hangs up the phone. My dad calls me literally 2 minutes later, sobbing uncontrollably, telling me how he loves me, how he, is proud of me and wants me to be myself and doesn't care at all. I got a phone call from my mom not too soon after that because I think she was in Europe at the time. So she was even more distraught because she felt like she couldn't be there for me. But so he outed me. It was a good thing because it allowed me to talk to my family a lot sooner than I think I would have otherwise. I probably would have held on to it for much longer than I did, and they were able to really become my support system at that point.
But what happened? Did he just turn off the call with you and tell them immediately? Did they overhear the conversation?
No. As soon as he hung up the phone with me, he called my dad and told him everything. That's why I said,
oh, God.
But he did it from a place of love, knowing that my family wouldn't care and that they were there to support me, which, like I said, I am grateful for it because I know a lot of people in our community don't have that support.
Yeah. So when it came time to like come out to the world and tell everyone that you're gay, was your family supportive of that?
They absolutely were. They were supportive with whatever made me most comfortable. And so there was never pressure to go one way or another. They were never like, oh my God, you can't tell anybody about this. You're going to destroy this family. And I think, the show shows it also in the first episode. That when I did tell my father that I was holding back this secret because I didn't want it to impact them, I didn't want it to damage his reputation or to have his fans kind of say hateful and hurtful things towards our family, he broke down crying, and I was not expecting that at all. I wasn't. I just thought it made sense in my head. And so it was maybe something that he was thinking about in the back of his head all along as well. But he was actually shocked to find out that before I moved back to Los Angeles, I was living in DC for about 8 years and I was working in politics. And he was shocked to find out that my friends in DC didn't know about me, didn't know that I was gay. My colleagues, coworkers, and he just assumed that all this time that I was living there, that most of my friends knew and that my colleagues knew, because when they would come and visit, I did have my close circle of people who I really trusted that would, meet them. And most of those were gay men as well. So they would meet my parents. But it was kind of these type of situation where even most of my close friends, a lot of them were on that same journey where they were comfortable with their close circle of friends. But when they go to work, when they go around people who they don't know, they aren't really open about their sexuality and they're keeping it to themselves. And so my dad was shocked to find that out, and he broke down crying. And at that point really challenged me to be a voice for my community and be a voice for people who are in the same situation as me and are on that journey. Because I think he inherently realizes, he has such great emotional intelligence, which I'm grateful for. And he realized inherently that if you're denying who you are, that's just not healthy. And I've unfortunately had friends who have taken their lives because they're not able to cope with the mental anguish that comes along with trying to live two different lives or feeling like you've been rejected and not able to be who you really are. And so I think his challenge to me was to really dive into this issue and really shed light on what a lot of people go through but maybe don't talk about.
I also wanted to point out that, there's clearly a double standard sometimes when, white person comes out and they're in the public eye, and a person of color comes out as gay in the public eye, was that, and you come from a famous family, was that another factor that prompted you to stay in the closet? Did you feel like, you know, maybe it would be even harder for you?
Yeah. No, I mean, it was. And I think, I don't know that this is something that is, you know, I can't like quantify the percentage of how I feel this way, but I do know that growing up, when it was an African-American man, a black man that was gay, it was the idea of, oh no, there goes another one. There goes another, you know, I think some of that is inherent in the black community because of a variety of reasons, you know, socioeconomic problems and, you know, the criminal justice system. We do have an issue where unfortunately a lot of our black men are behind bars, and, you know, there is a deficit of strong black men who are in the household today. That's a fact. I mean, the data shows that specifically. And so I think it's amplified a bit when, you know, to put it frankly, you have a black man that's seemingly successful like myself, doing well, has a good career, and then he comes out as gay. It's like, oh, there goes another one that we're not going to have that's raising a family in the traditional way that, you know, a lot of black people might want to see. And, you know, might want to see me marry a black woman and have black children. And so there is that pressure. And I know my boyfriend, Elliot, is from South Carolina, and we talk about that a lot. I mean, the pressure that when you grew up in the South, there's that expectation that you go to school, you get a job, you get married, and you raise a family. And it's that pressure that you're letting your entire community down if you don't check those boxes.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm an immigrant. I was born and raised in Latin America, so we have similar pressure there, and that's why I wanted to ask you if you felt like it was even harder for you.
Yeah, and you know, I know you're not supposed to read the comments, but I do every now and then because I just like to keep a pulse on things, and it's hard not to. But those are a lot of the comments that, unfortunately, those are what a lot of the negative comments have said, is that, you know, oh God, look at Judge Mathis. He raised a weak son. There must be something wrong with him. You know, why do all our black men have to be gay? And that's just not the truth. And it's not the case. If it were the case, it shouldn't be a problem.
Was there a specific turning point for you to say, because you had all these fears of coming out publicly, was there one specific turning point that made you feel like, all right, I'm going to do this now? Or do you feel like it was something that built up over time?
It was a mix of both. It was something that built up over time, but I will say that when our family talked about, my younger brother Amir is an executive producer on Mathis Family Matters, and kind of talked to our entire family about doing this project. And when that conversation came up, I had a decision to make. My boyfriend Elliot had a decision to make, and part of that's captured on throughout the series as well, of like how we are going to deal with this, with our sexuality, and how public or not public are we going to be about this. And
how is he a cast member? Yeah.
Introduced
as a cast member.
But I will tell you, and it's unfortunate because like this is the reality, is that, you know, we talked to some friends about it as well, and it was that question of, okay, are we going to, Elliot, my boyfriend, are you going to be on the show at all? Am I going to be publicly gay on the show, or is this something where we don't talk about it and I kind of just say, or I have you on the show as a friend? I mean, we really went through all those scenarios, and I actually had a friend in DC that was adamant, saying that, no, you shouldn't talk about that. You know, Elliot should just be on there as your friend, and it's nobody's business. And, you know, you don't have to explain anything to anybody, and they can ask and say what they want, but you all should just be on the show as yourselves and as friends, and people can draw whatever conclusions they want to draw. Obviously, we didn't make that decision, and a big part that went into that is that we really knew that, it's a reality show. You have to be your authentic self. You have to be who you really are, and it's not going to do us justice. It's not going to do anybody else justice if we go on there pretending to be something that we're not. And the other part was me knowing that we could definitely help change the narrative of what a Black gay couple looks like and what they are and who they are, and hopefully save lives by being an example to people who might be going through some of the same things that we've been through.
Yeah. And I'm curious to know, I asked about your perspective, your family's perspective. You mentioned your friend's perspective. I'm also curious to know, what was the process with Elliot? I mean, you've been with this guy for so long. You've been living this closeted life. You mentioned where he's from. So he also has his own qualms about, being on a reality show and coming out in that way. What was his decision-making process to, sign up for this?
That was a tough one because Elliot is a super private person, even outside of just his sexual orientation. I mean,
right.
He's very guarded. It's like we're polar opposites in a sense. We're like, I'll be in a room just like telling my business to everybody. Elliot's like, why are you talking about that? He's raised in a Southern family where like they don't talk about certain things. They keep things close to the chest. Family business is family business. And I think I abide by that for the most part, but I can be just a bit more chatty and a bit more forthcoming with things. And so, he had his own journey to get comfortable, but like I talked about before, we had that conversation and he realized that this was a big moment and a big opportunity to really push back against some of those narratives. And he had work to do to get to that point. He had his own journey, which was a bit different than mine. And even on the show, like I said, you will see that like I was there at that point, but we had a very real conversation on the show about like, okay, I'm going to step out. I'm going to make this public announcement. Here's what I want to do. Like, where does that leave you? And he was still deciding where that left him. Like, did he want to step out with me, or is it going to be where he takes a step back and we're like, okay, we got to scrub all that image of Elliot because he's not going to be a part of this journey anymore. And that was a hard conversation to have, particularly while you're filming, but I think it was an important one because a lot of people have it. A lot of people have it. I've had friends who go through that process of, I can't date this person because they're not ready to be out. They're not ready to be authentic with themselves. And as much as I love them, as much as I care about them.
And again, making it local, I can post this person on Instagram, or I can't, it can be as simple as that.
Yep. And that's hard because it may sound simple, it may sound trite or trivial, but that is important because I'm realizing, and now I've had to unlearn so many things that I was used to doing, like not showing affection towards Elliot in public, not posting her on Instagram, being afraid to post certain things. And I can tell you, since we've been able to do it now, since we started to do it, we still have to unlearn certain things. Like we'll be in public and he'll, I'll grab his hand or vice versa. And I'm like, oh, should we be doing this? Yeah, of course we should be doing this. Like there should be nothing wrong with us holding hands in public. And it's funny because I can remember the first time, even when we were dating and we weren't public, about 3 years into our relationship, we did a anniversary trip. Our anniversary is February 14th, Valentine's Day. And we do a trip to Europe every year around that time. So we were in Paris where like nobody knew us. Like I didn't have much of a profile at that point. And I just remember we felt so free walking down the street. It was like one of the first times we ever walked down the street and just held hands and like didn't worry about who was seeing us because we were like, no one's gonna see us over here. Like we can do whatever we want. And it is really that feeling that I hope we can show and kind of spread and normalize to the extent that people don't have to feel like they have to hide or can't be themselves, and that we deserve to have the same love, affection, and PDA that heterosexual couples are able to enjoy.
Of course, absolutely. At this point, how long have you guys been together?
6 years. So it's been a long time to
6 years.
Not to get
6 years
to finally be ourselves.
In gay years, that's like 30 years.
Right?
Yeah.
We started off as the young, cute couple on the block. Now we're the OGs, giving everybody else
TV stars. Yeah, reality TV stars. Do you think that this is kind of I'm curious, do you think that coming out as gay, already being in a relationship, and not only being in a relationship, but being in a relationship of 6 years, was easier than if you had come out on the show as just a single guy? Or do you think that wouldn't have made a big difference?
So I'll give you 3 scenarios. I think coming out single probably would have been the easiest because you don't have to think about anything else. You're literally just thinking about
it. Good point.
And I was great, I was lucky enough to have the support of my family. In this process, I have to think about every single thing that I'm doing is going to impact Elliot. So if I make a decision, no matter what I want, I'm in love with this man. So I got to run it by him, and I got to make sure he's comfortable. I got to make sure he's ready to take the same steps that I want to take, because whatever I do is going to inherently affect him. If we weren't 6 years into this relationship, I don't know how that would have gone, because outside of just, our sexual orientation, like, relationships are tough. And, 6 years in, we've done a lot of work to get to where we are today. I'm not going to sit here and lie and tell you the first 2-3 years were easy peasy. We had our, ups and downs, but, things that we were dealing with both inside of our relationship, but also just the trauma and baggage that we were dealing with in our individual lives that came from a variety of places. So, like, we had to do the work as a couple, and that even involved couples therapy that we went through at a certain point in our relationship, and we came out much better because of it. And so I say that to say, answer that question, that if this was earlier on in our relationship, I don't know if we would have had the emotional intelligence, the capability to really work through some of the things that we really had to work through to do this in a united way, and to be able to come out to the public in a united way. I mean, we could barely decide what we wanted to have for dinner without having an argument some days. So it's like, how do you decide a big decision like this?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. The show featured a conversation between you and EJ Johnson, who you mentioned before, about coming out. Was he a big influence on you to, like, make this decision? Or from what I gathered, did you almost feel more scared after his experience, because it was a turbulent time? Like, was he an influence in a sort of negative way, or seeing how things transpired, did you feel like, okay, at the end of the day, it'll be fine? Like, what was going through your mind watching him go through it?
So it was a bit of a mixed bag for me when it came to, like, watching EJ and seeing the way he handled his coming out process, and just the heat that he got, the heat that his family got. Because you're completely right. On one hand, when I saw, the reaction to him, it was empowering to see him step out in such a confident way and really not give a damn what anybody had to say. I mean, EJ was like, I'm here, this fantastic. Is take it or leave it. You leave it, I don't really care. And so it was inspiring to see that confidence in him. And I always say that even though EJ is younger than me, it's almost as if EJ is my, he's the big brother, because I look up to him in so many ways, and just how courageous he is to be able to step out there. Now at the same time, it was scary, because yes, people would say the craziest stuff about EJ, and they continue to, just hateful things, hurtful things. But watching EJ helped me a lot get to the point of not caring in a way that, and the response I've started to give a lot of people is like, look, because a lot of the hate does come from the religious standpoint. And, I go to church every Sunday. I am very religious. I continue to practice my faith. And what I say to people is, look, I love who I am, but I didn't create who I am. So, like, if you have a problem with me and who I am, you need to take it up with God on your judgment day, because God created me this way. And that's kind of the mantra I've adopted. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say I have half of the confidence that EJ does. I mean, EJ is just fierce and walks into a room and is a force.
Next level. He's next level.
Yes. And so I love it and admire it. And it's just so funny because I have a funny story about that, actually, when, EJ and I have been close for years. And what was this? This had to be maybe 10 years ago. EJ and I went to a Dodgers game together, and we're just hanging out as friends. Like, my brother's friends with EJ were family friends, so even if I weren't gay, it would not have been out of the realm of reality for us to be hanging out.
Right.
Like a lot of gay, straight friends, like across the spectrum. And so we're at the game together, enjoying each other's company, and didn't think anything of it. Leave, go home. I wake up 2 days later. I was living in DC. I was visiting LA. So I had flown back from LA to DC, and I wake up and I'm getting all these phone calls and text messages. And I look at my phone and there is some random blog that has reported, EJ Johnson out at the Dodgers game with his new boyfriend. And my face is on the screen. Right next to EJ.
Wow.
And this is before I was out, before like any of my colleagues knew or anything.
10 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, and so like, I don't know if you have ever been through, I don't even, so it was right around the time I first moved to DC. So probably 8 years ago was closer to when it was.
Got it.
And so I don't know I'm sure you may have, but like that heat that kind of rises on the back of your neck and kind of that shock and fear that takes over your whole body. I just remember feeling that and being like, oh crap, like what do I do? And like, thank God it didn't blow up too big. It was on like one blog that reported it and didn't go much further than that. But I just say it's a funny story because like we laugh about it today, but because EJ and I have never dated actually, but.
And you both being gay, but like nothing ever happened. So that was just ridiculous. Yeah, that's hilarious. Now that your story is out there and you've had some time to process, what has been the general reaction that you got from people? Has it been mostly positive? Has it been mostly negative? Has it been 50-50? I'm curious about that.
It has been, from what I've seen, 95% like love, positivity.
That's awesome. That's
even
awesome.
from my dad's fans who I was afraid that they might react negatively. It's been positive. I would say the comments that have bothered me the most and are not the hateful ones, which is surprising because you would think that might, to me at least, because I would have thought that those would be the ones that get to me the most. The ones that kind of bothered me the most were seeing people who would say things like, oh, why do you have to come out of the closet? You're just doing this for attention, or you're doing this for A, B, and D. Like, why is it such a big deal when gay people come out of the closet? Like, why does it matter? Who cares? And some of those people may be well-intentioned, some of them may not be. But I think that bothers me because it doesn't recognize the trauma that a lot of LGBTQ folks go through their entire life to get to the point of coming out. And that's why to me it's a big deal, because you go through your entire life and you're hearing, you are, for me and for everyone, like we talked about, no matter how big your community is or how a public figure you are being asked questions about who you're dating. Do you like this girl? Do you like, where's your girlfriend? You're getting that from your aunts, your uncles, your churchmen.
Holiday events.
Yeah. And so like, that's even amplified for me with my dad being who he is. I got those questions my entire life. And I was lying about it. I was making up girlfriends. I was dating girls and not being intimate with them, and, putting myself through all types of things that were not healthy for me mentally, not healthy in any type of way, just to try and hide who I was. And so I think what those folks fail to realize is that when, as a queer person, you get to that comfort level where you're able to be honest, you're able to be authentic. It is a big deal to tell folks like, here I am. And that's the whole idea to me. I mean, I know Pride originally started as a riot, but like, that's the whole idea, is that no, we're not going to hide. We're not going to shrink away and be in the closet anymore. We're going to come out and be prideful and be proud and be honest and authentic about who we are. It just shows how far I think we've come as a society, even though we got a lot of battles to fight and there's a lot of hate that continues to come our way. It makes me feel really good to see that. I feel that the generations that are going to come after us will be in much better hands when it comes to public opinion.